Maplewood Lane looked like it had been plucked straight from a suburban dream. Perfectly lined sidewalks, pastel-painted homes, kids riding scooters, and the gentle hum of sprinklers in the early morning hours. Tucked in a cul-de-sac in the town of Bloomfield, this neighborhood was the kind where neighbors exchanged holiday cookies, waved from across driveways, and hosted annual barbecues. But in the summer of 2022, Maplewood Lane became the backdrop for one of the most shocking murders the town had ever seen. It started on a Monday morning, June 13th, 7:06 a.m. A frantic 911 call pierced the calm. The voice on the other end was trembling, gasping, barely able to form words. I think she's dead. There's blood everywhere. Oh my God, she's not breathing." The caller was Rachel Monroe, a neighbor and close friend of the victim, 42-year-old mother of two, Susan Atwood. Rachel had come over to check on Susan after she didn't respond to texts and missed their usual morning walk. The front door was unlocked. The coffee pot was still warm, but Susan's body lay crumpled at the base of the stairs, her head gashed, her hands bruised, and her neck bearing signs of strangulation. Police responded within minutes. The house showed no signs of forced entry. No valuables were missing. Nothing was broken. The back door was locked from the inside. Detective Laura Granger, a seasoned investigator with over 20 years in homicide, arrived on the scene by 8 a.m. She immediately knew this wasn't a random break-in. "This felt personal," she later told reporters. "The kind of violence we saw, it was angry, intimate." The neighborhood went into panic mode. Susan had been well-liked, active in the PDA, known for her lemon bars, always willing to lend a hand. She volunteered at the local library, led yoga classes in the park, and hosted the Halloween hayride. Who would want her dead? And more chillingly, how did the killer get inside without breaking in? Neighbors gathered in clumps on their lawns, exchanging nervous glances and whispered theories. Police canvassed every house. Rachel was questioned first, along with Susan's husband, Mark Atwood, who had been away on a business trip in Denver. His alibi checked out. Surveillance from the airport, hotel timestamps, and key card access confirmed he'd been out of state. Investigators expanded their net. Security footage from nearby homes showed no suspicious activity in or out of the Atwood residence. But one camera, a Ring doorbell across the street, caught a subtle detail. At 9:47 p.m. the night before, a figure could be seen walking toward the Atwoods' front porch. Not running, walking, casually, as if they belonged. The footage was grainy. The figure wore a hoodie. They rang the doorbell, and a few seconds later, the door opened. Susan let them in. That was the last time she was seen alive. The footage sent a chill through the police department and the community. Whoever killed Susan wasn't a stranger. It was someone she knew well enough to invite in. Someone trusted. As the medical examiner confirmed, Susan died between 10 p.m. and midnight from blunt force trauma and strangulation. The town waited with bated breath. The question wasn't just who did it. It was, how close was the killer? And soon, detectives would discover that the killer didn't drive in from out of town. They walked from just a few houses down. Just hours after the discovery, police would uncover one more chilling detail that turned the entire investigation on its head. Something hidden in plain sight, inside a neighbor's garage. The garage belonged to Daniel Whitaker, a 38-year-old divorced father of one who lived 3 houses down from the Atwoods. A quiet man with an easy smile, Daniel worked remotely as a graphic designer and was known for helping neighbors with tech issues and yard work. To most on Maplewood Lane, Daniel was dependable, ordinary. But what police found inside his garage would rewrite everything they thought they knew. Detectives Granger and Holloway were conducting door-to-door interviews when they arrived at Daniel's property. He answered the door promptly, wearing jeans, a hoodie, and a calm expression. He invited them in without hesitation. His house was tidy. Nothing seemed out of place, until Granger noticed a faint metallic smell coming from the garage door. "Mind if we take a quick look out back?" she asked casually. Daniel hesitated just for a second, then nodded. What they found inside was a bloodied hammer, a pair of torn latex gloves, and a hoodie identical to the one seen in the doorbell footage. Even more damning, a small scrap of paper in the trash bin with the words S. Atwood 9:30 p.m. scrawled in messy handwriting. Daniel's demeanor shifted. His voice got tighter. He asked if they had a warrant. They didn't, not yet, but they had probable cause. Within the hour, police obtained a search warrant. Forensics confirmed the blood on the hammer matched Susan Atwood's. His fingerprints were on the gloves. Surveillance footage showed Daniel walking back toward his home just before 11 p.m., less than 30 minutes after Susan's estimated time of death. The arrest shocked the community. Neighbors gathered outside as Daniel was led into a squad car in handcuffs. Rachel Monroe wept openly. "He mowed my lawn last week," she whispered. "He helped put up the lights for Susan's birthday." But the question that loomed larger than how was why. During his interrogation, Daniel denied everything. He claimed he hadn't seen Susan in weeks. He said the hoodie was just a coincidence, that the hammer belonged to his toolset, that the note was an old reminder from a PDA meeting. He insisted he had nothing to hide. But when pressed, his calm exterior cracked. Detectives discovered Susan and Daniel had a history, one the neighbors didn't know about. 2 years earlier, Susan had helped Daniel's ex-wife, Marlene, during a messy custody battle. She testified on her behalf, telling the court Daniel had a temper and had once threatened her in a parking lot after a disagreement. Daniel lost partial custody shortly after that. It was motive, a quiet, boiling resentment masked behind neighborly smiles and polite conversations. Daniel's digital records showed repeated searches about Susan in the weeks leading up to the murder. Revenge without evidence, how to make a murder look accidental, and pressure point neck break were among the queries found on his browser history. The picture was coming together, but Daniel wasn't done talking. In the middle of a late-night interview, he leaned forward, eyes shadowed and voice cold. "She deserved to pay for what she took from me," he said. "People think she was perfect, but they didn't see what I saw." Detective Granger noted the shift in tone. It wasn't just rage, it was obsession. And for the first time, they realized Susan's murder may not have been a crime of passion. It may have been a carefully planned execution by someone the whole block had trusted. Following Daniel Whitaker's arrest, the Bloomfield Police Department intensified its investigation. Detective Granger knew something wasn't sitting right. Daniel's statement had been cryptic, as if there was more he wasn't saying. And with the evidence stacking up, the department wasn't taking any chances. Forensic teams returned to the Atwood home to re-examine every inch. They paid close attention to the walls, furniture, even the ventilation systems. In the upstairs guest bedroom, behind a bookshelf, crime scene techs discovered a small, pinhole camera tucked discreetly into the drywall. It was connected to a wireless signal, routed through a third-party server. The realization hit hard. Someone had been watching Susan. And it hadn't been just that night. It had been going on for weeks, maybe months. The camera's memory card revealed hours of footage, all saved to a hidden drive in Daniel's home office. Footage of Susan folding laundry, cooking dinner, practicing yoga. The last clip, timestamped the night of the murder, showed Daniel entering the house through the front door with no sign of force. Susan smiled, welcoming him inside. He had brought wine. The video didn't show the actual murder. It cut off after Susan turned her back. But it painted a chilling picture. Susan had trusted him completely, and Daniel had used that trust to his advantage. Detectives also discovered that Daniel had bugged her phone and accessed her cloud account through a phishing scam months earlier. He had read her texts, emails, even her private diary entries stored on her phone's notes app. In one, dated April 4th, Susan wrote, "Daniel's been around a lot lately. Mark says he gives off a weird energy. I think he's harmless, just lonely." Back at the precinct, investigators presented the findings to Daniel. He barely flinched. "I told you," he said coldly. "She wasn't what everyone thought. She was a liar, a manipulator. She turned my own son against me." But the jury would see none of that as justification. Public outrage grew as the story spread. News vans lined Maplewood Lane. Talk shows dissected every detail. The Maplewood murder trended online, and as more evidence surfaced, including deleted messages, tracking apps, and surveillance screenshots, it became clear. This was the work of a man who had planned every step, yet convinced himself it was justified. Rachel Monroe, Susan's best friend, was interviewed on local news. Her voice trembled as she said, "We all saw Daniel. We all talked to him. We let him into our homes. If this can happen here, it can happen anywhere." The community turned inward. Trust fractured. Neighborhood Facebook groups became battlegrounds of fear and suspicion. Children no longer played in the yards. Porch lights stayed on all night. Maplewood Lane had become a ghost of itself. As Daniel awaited trial, confined to a maximum security facility without bail, Detective Granger reviewed the case files late one night. A quote from Susan's diary kept replaying in her mind. "Some people wear their masks so well, you forget to check what's underneath." And Daniel Whitaker's mask had finally cracked. The trial of Daniel Whitaker began 6 months after Susan Atwood's murder. It was held in the Bloomfield County Courthouse, a red-brick structure that now served as the epicenter of the town's fractured peace. National media outlets covered every moment. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, grieving friends, anxious neighbors, and Susan's family filled every seat. Daniel entered the courtroom in a navy suit, calm and unshaken. He offered no apology, no emotion. His defense argued diminished mental capacity, painting him as a broken man driven to the edge by loss and betrayal. They described his obsession with Susan as a psychological fracture born of unresolved trauma. But the prosecution had more than emotion. They had evidence, overwhelming and damning. Surveillance footage, search history, the camera in the wall, the hammer, the gloves, the diary entries, and Susan's final moments, immortalized on a grainy video where she smiled at her killer. Detective Granger testified for over 2 hours, laying out the timeline piece by piece. Rachel Monroe testified, breaking down in tears when recounting their last conversation. Susan's husband, Mark, took the stand too, his voice shaking with rage and sorrow as he read aloud from Susan's final Mother's Day card to their children. When the jury returned after just 7 hours of deliberation, the courtroom held its breath. Guilty, on all counts. The judge sentenced Daniel Whitaker to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There was no outburst, no protest. Daniel simply nodded once, then was escorted away. It was over, at least in the eyes of the law. But for Bloomfield, it wasn't truly over. Maplewood Lane never returned to what it once was. For sale signs dotted the street within weeks. The Atwood house remained empty, unsold, unvisited. Children whispered ghost stories about the murder house. Neighbors installed extra locks, security cameras, motion lights. Every knock at the door came with hesitation. Rachel moved away. Mark and the kids relocated to his sister's home 3 states over. The annual summer block party was canceled indefinitely. And the quiet peace that once defined the neighborhood had been replaced by a permanent tension. Detective Granger, now nearing retirement, drove past Maplewood Lane one final time. She stopped in front of the Atwood home, staring at the windows that had once glowed warmly at night. She thought of Susan's final words in her diary. Some people wear their masks so well, and she knew. Some stories never really end. They echo through empty houses, through shattered families, through the silence that follows the sirens. Because the most dangerous monsters aren't strangers in the dark. They're the people next door. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join our growing true crime community.